Yo, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Go ahead, get this channel, subscribe, share, leave some messages or comments, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. You know what to do. Also, get out there and get you a copy of this Dear Mom, Dear Son, Separated by Bars, Not the Heart. Me and my mother's book. It'll change your life. It's a very humbling experience. It was extremely difficult for me to write. It's already changed a lot of lives. Become a part of the story. Get you a copy. Don't be shy. Amazon.com. So, if you scared, go to church. I'm sure you've heard that saying a million times. Snoop Dogg put it in one of his songs, and it's the same saying that is across all prison systems in this country, including the feds. If you're scared, go to church. And in a lot of cases, that's true. A lot of people are scared when they go to prison. A lot of people do feel that the church is a sanctuary, a safe space away from the violence, the politics, the drama, and everything else that's on every high security or medium security prison yard across the country. When you're in a low or someplace like that, I've often heard that religion is not something that's oftenly practiced in a lot of cases. A lot of people don't go to church as much in a lower security facility as they do in higher securities. And you would have to ask yourself why. Why is that? And it's because, it's like I said, people are scared. They're scared to death of what's going on out on them yards. Motherfuckers are being killed, man. There's people that are getting banged off the yard over drug debts, gambling debts, various other offenses. And in order to get away from all of that shit, it's easy for somebody just to say that I'm a Christian, pick up a Bible, go into the church, be on fire for the Lord, and the minute they're released, it's right back to business as usual, right back to the backsliding and all of that. And I have a whole different outlook on this whole turning to religion in prison thing than you may think. For me, it's always been an individual choice. Even when I was in the state, there would be a homie or somebody that come along and say, hey, you know what, man, I found Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, or this or that. Well, good, go to church and do that thing. My whole thing was always like, if you want to do that religious walk, then you do it full-heartedly. Don't let me find out you doing anything stupid, or don't let anybody else find out you're doing anything stupid behind the scenes, because then you're going to get smashed. Simple as that. In a lot of cases, a homie is allowed to pursue his spiritual path. He may not be liked by everybody. He may be looked at as soft and weak and all that shit like that. But you know what? It's always the case if somebody is truly grounded in their spirituality and their religious walk, words of other people don't matter, because in their mind, it's the mind of the devil playing tricks on them to get them to go back into that life. And it makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm not here to convert you to any one religion or another, because I have a very different, unique spiritual path than a lot of you may think. And you're going to hear a little bit about it right here. And you're going to hear a little bit about my experience with spirituality, or things of a higher power, of a higher power's nature, that I've never experienced before. Because this whole case that sent me to the feds was truly a interesting experience from the moment it started until the moment it ended. There was a lot of things going on, a lot of forces at work that I could not understand. And I could tell you firsthand, there are forces of light out there, and there are forces of darkness. And there are forces of what's called gray. And it creates almost like white noise that you see on a TV. It's all scrambled in between, and sometimes the good and the bad crosses lines, and there's really no good and there's really no bad. It's just all spiritual nature built upon everything that you create for your world. I know this firsthand. It is a power that's greater than myself. So for a lot of you narcissistic atheist type people out there, because that's what atheism is, it's narcissism, something that you can't believe in past the reflection in your mirror, you think there's nothing else. But there is. There's a lot of shit going on out there. Believe me. And leading up to my arrest, I could tell you this, and I'll reveal this, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this before. But when I was surrounded in that parking lot by the FBI, Amarillo Police Department, and even one Texas Ranger, I was unstrapped. The only thing that I had was a phone. And I was willing to grab my phone and go out there and point it at the cops so that I could get judge, jury, and executioner right there in the spot, because I was tapped out. Everything, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, I was just at my bottom point. Can't really say rock bottom, because every time I thought I reached rock bottom, I was just digging a little bit deeper to see how far I can go into the core of the earth, to where it's just nothing but fire. And that's where I was at. And I could tell you that I seen something out of the corner of my eye. It was a young girl sitting on a bike, and she was smiling at me. And I'm looking at her like, go away, because there's about ready to be some bullets ringing out. And I don't want to see nobody else get hurt because of some shit that I did. Not some innocent civilian, as a lot of us in the gang world like to call them. But it's something, whether it was a trick of the mind, whether it was the fact that I've been on a sick one for days, I don't know what it was. But whatever it was, something came over me and told me that everything was going to be okay. That I just needed to surrender. Let go. And just end this fucking shit once and for all. And we're not talking just the case. We're talking the lifestyle that I have chosen to live for over 20 years. 20 plus years. It was time to put it down and be done with it. And I did. And I surrendered. And I got out of that car, and it was one of the first times I've ever surrendered to the cops. I've always taken them on a chase. I've always fought back, resisted, whatnot. But I went without a shot fired, without a punch thrown. And I was on the ground. They cuffed me up, I got up, and I looked, and that girl was gone. To this very day, I can't explain that shit, but it blew my mind. It sent me into like a whole lot of depression and turmoil and straight just insanity almost. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what was going on inside of me. I didn't know what this was that was growing in me, what kind of power it was. But something was leading me towards changing my life for good. Like I was done with it. It made my stomach sick to even think about all the things that I used to hold dear. Politics, the drama, all the bullshit on the yard. When I got to the Grady County Detention Center, I tried every way possible to try to understand this feeling that I was having coming over me. Now, Oklahoma is a big red state. It's hardcore, diehard evangelical Christians, Church of Christ types, all those kind of hardcore conservative Christian valued people. And the only person that was coming in to the block over there was the preacher man, Bibles and study materials, is what I used to hear every morning. So I went out there and grabbed myself a Bible and some study materials that he had, and I read through all that stuff. I actually read the Bible cover to cover, from Old Testament to New Testament, and for some reason it just didn't sit right with me. There was something else, and I was getting depressed because I wanted to believe in something greater than myself, but I just didn't know how, and I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know how it would make sense. Because it's something you can't see. People say that you have to act on blind faith. I mean, blind faith is something that I subscribe to in the lifestyle, because I had blind faith that my ways of the streets, this gangster code, was going to lead me to riches and fame and live happily ever after in some mansion on an island. But we all know that don't work that way. It doesn't never go down that way. It's jails, institutions, or death. And I don't mean to, quote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's the truth. Jails, institutions, or death. That's the outcome for the criminal lifestyle, as well as any other addiction, as you know. So, I was getting depressed, and then I read this book by Karen Armstrong. It's called The History of God, and it was all about the history of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and then it even further confused me. Because I'm like, what path am I supposed to be taking with all this bullshit that's out there? all these different denominations and different beliefs. Somebody telling me that I had to accept a man thousands of years ago as my Lord and Savior, and I had to believe that he was God in the flesh. And I wasn't ready to do that. There was no way I was going to do that. So I had to figure out what it was that was missing in my life. I went into the federal system, and basically I started delving deeper and deeper into Judaism and the Kabbalah, or the Kabbalah, whichever one you want to call it. I started studying everything. I had actually been studying theology and religion and the origin of religions for over 20 years. So I knew a lot about it. Reading the Bible cover to cover several times in my life, but this last time I read it with the spiritual receptor open up, and I wasn't biting into it. I needed something greater than that. So I started practicing a lot of like Kabbalah, a lot of ceremonial type stuff. And for those of you out there that knows what I'm talking about, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I finally found what it was that I was looking for. That basically God, or if there is such a being, lives inside of me. And I was bringing that out through ritual and ceremony and intention and magnetism and opening all these different doors of the mysteries and things. And I started getting deep into that. A lot of Rosicrucian mystery, a lot of anthroposophical mystery, Masonic stuff. All of that was at my disposal. And I studied it for years. I spent a lot of time at that church, but the church is not just about Christianity. Everybody's different religion was in there. You had the Moorish Science Temple in there. You had Juma services on Friday for Islam. Jehovah's Witnesses were in there. The Mormons were in there. Santeria was in there. Satanism was in there. The Odinists were in there. I mean, I could go on and on. Various different practices that were going in there. So when you say if you're scared, go to church, in a lot of cases that's relevant to people that go the Christian way. Because mostly when people go to prison, that's the direction they go. Into Christianity. They go into that room and they're looking for something that's missing in their life, or they're going in there to hide out. I started getting real deep into this whole thing about spirituality, and I was confusing a lot of the beliefs of Christianity with my own. So I had actually gone to the man who was running the yard, the Llavero, and I told them, man, I'm on this spiritual path and all this and that. You know, I'm just like, want to be separate from all that stuff. And in his mind, he looked at it almost as if it was like, I'm trying to open the door to dropping out. But it was never my intention to drop out, or forget who I was, or forget who I am, or where I came from. So I'm like, nah, man. I mean, you're totally misconstruing what I'm saying. You're confusing what I'm telling you with me wanting to go into the Christian church and become a prison minister in there. That's not what I'm talking about. This is an individual thing. This is a quest that I'm on for myself. It has nothing to do with fellowship with a bunch of other people or anything like that. This is something I did alone. And he's like, well, then do it. And I'm not going to step on anything that is your practice, because he practiced what was called Santeria. So he understood. He was also on that same path, and it was like a huge revelation to me. And I studied a little bit of Santeria. And I believe in a lot of what it teaches. My path was almost the same, a little bit different. I don't like to really say exactly what it is, because a lot of people get scared and they don't understand this. But I have learned basically how to balance the light and the dark forces in my life. and keep them in that gray, that middle balance, that middle column, middle pillar is what it's called. And I did all this by going to the church. Was I scared? Absolutely not, because I don't fear death. If somebody was to come into my house and put a gun to my head and say goodbye and blow me away, it wouldn't mean a fuck to me. I don't fear death at all, because I know what is beyond this body. I've experienced it before. If you scared go to church is not necessarily a one thing for all. It takes a lot of courage to stand upon your principles of spirituality. It takes a lot of courage for you to stand out there and say, you know what? I'm a Christian, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Moorish Science Temple, or I'm a Mormon. I'm a witch. I'm a Satanist. I'm a this, I'm a that. It takes a lot of courage for somebody to do that. And not everybody that goes into that church is scared. A lot of those people that go into those churches have got a lot more balls and courage than a lot of these people out in the yard that are saying that bullshit without even knowing what it means. I recommend for everybody to find yourself a spiritual compass of some kind. It doesn't have to be Christianity, Islam, Judaism, whatever. As long as it is something that is bigger than you, so that you don't think that you're bigger than you are. I got a lot of problem with narcissistic type of people and atheists and stuff like that. Because you think you're all that's it, and you're not. There's a lot going on beyond you, believe that. You find that by going to these places of worship. You find that by embracing something that is calling you from within that you can't understand, but you search and you seek it out. And you figure out what it is that's calling you. And when you find it, it's like a great sense of peace has come over you. There is not very much on this earth that bothers me at all. People say all kinds of shit about me all the time. They've done it for years, and it used to piss me off. I used to go hard, trying to prove people wrong and everything. And every time somebody had something negative to say, I would meet it with violence or some form of destruction to that person or what that person had around them. I hear all kinds of shit here in my comments section. I don't even have to go any further than my comment section to see how a lot of people feel about me. But it's my spiritual foundation that keeps me strong, and it's like a shield around me. If you scared go to church, it's bullshit. If you on the inside and you feel a spiritual presence calling you, embrace it and experience it, because it could quite possibly change your life forever. And fuck what anyone else thinks, because they ain't gonna do a goddamn thing for you when you get out. Not a goddamn thing. All them people on the yard, they didn't do shit for me when I got out. Nothing. If I didn't have this spiritual foundation to hold me strong, I'd have never made it. Think about that. If you scared go to church, basically look at it like this. If you got courage to find something greater than yourself, go to that church and find it. And don't worry about what anybody else says or does, even if they smash you or kill you. You died for your convictions and your beliefs. You can't be wrong for that. And that's basically just my philosophy on that whole thing, turning to religion in prison. If that's your choice, do it. And fuck what anybody else says. Because they ain't going to help you do anything. And that's what it is. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoated, non-politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that. Thick of reality, and I'm out.